My name is Tim Johnson. This is Recovery, Strength, Hope and Courage. Today I want to share with you, if I can, a way that I've learnt or a way you can learn to start to control your fears and anxiety, or fear and anxiety that you feel. Fear is a terrible thing. It can cripple us, it can paralyze us, it can stop us from doing things and achieving things, and it can stop us enjoying our lives and living life. I hope to share with you in a way that I've sort of learned. It takes 5 seconds to start to control that fear and that anxiety that you're feeling. But first of all, talk a little bit about fear and what it is, and the actual dictionary definition of fear, and all the definitions you look up is, and I'm looking up here to read it so I get it right. Definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of danger, pain or harm, an emotional response induced by a perceived threat. And there's a couple of really important words in that definition. Because fear is real. People tell you, oh, fear, it isn't real. But fear is there for a reason. It's put into our genetics, and we've evolved it for a reason. Basically, in caveman days, as you're probably aware, in those days of prehistoric man, fear was there, and it was extremely useful, because one of the words in that definition is danger. Now, danger really is real. There is danger out there. And we need this fight or flight response in our bodies to deal with danger, or we did do a lot more in those days than we do now. See, the problem is that in those days we were running away from wild animals and Christ knows what else, to try and save our lives, to prevent ourselves from being eaten or attacked or whatever it was. Much the same as it was in sort of Middle Ages and all those sort of times. Fear was an extremely useful tool to have, because what it does, it prepares your body for fight or flight. So as you're probably aware, when you feel fear, when fear is happening in your body, you get a dry feeling in your mouth. You get that horrible, fluttering, nervous, unexplainable feeling in your pit of your stomach. You sweat, your armpits sweat. You maybe start to shake, your mouth's dry. What's happening is cortisol is running around your body. Your body becomes highly aware and highly charged. Your stress hormones start to pour around your body. Your heart rate goes up. You're preparing your body for fight and flight, and and that's a purely natural response to danger and a perceived threat. The problem we've got perceived, that's the other important word in that definition, because the problem in today's society is we don't necessarily, of course there is danger out there. I'm not naive enough to suggest there isn't danger out there. Of course there is, but it's a different sort. It's not a daily fight for survival. It may be for one or two people. There are people in the world that do have a daily fight for survival and use fear, but generally the modern person in the modern way, that's living a modern lifestyle, doesn't use fear for the fight or flight response that it's meant to be for. And what happens is, because we're not living in the moment, are we? We're living in our heads at the moment. We're living, what I like to say, in our ego. So the word perceived comes into play here, and basically we start to worry and fear things that don't really exist, aren't really there, and that's based on our minds being in the past and in the future. So we either start to worry about things that have happened in the past, or we worry about things that maybe are going to happen in the future that will never materialize. The problem is that our bodies still have the same response to this fear. Mind's a very, very, very powerful thing, and it's this, like I say, this mind-body connection I talk about. So the mind starts to build these fears up, these unreal fears here. Now this is something, and I know myself, with recovery and with withdrawal, the fear of withdrawal stopped me thousands of times, from going into it and facing it. The fear of living sober, the fear of experiencing emotions, all these fears came into play, and they build up in your mind, and they build this false picture. So you've got no life at all, really, because you're not living in the moment. It's a type of it's almost a type of insanity, because we're fearing something that doesn't exist, that builds up in our minds. It's like sort of fear of flying, a fear of public speaking, all these fears. It may well be justified fears, and people tell you, oh, face your fears, you can conquer your fears. Well, you can't. It's not that easy. You can't. But what I'm going to share with you is a way that you can start to deal with them and combat them, and twist your mind round to deal with them in a different way. Because everyone has fears. It's natural to have fears, you know. But the problem is our mind, because it's so powerful, it builds this fear up, and we then have this obstacle, this paralyzing fear, which doesn't really exist, which stops us doing things, stops us achieving things. It may stop us achieving things in our work life. It may stop you from going in and asking your boss for a raise and complaining about your work conditions. It may stop you trying an idea out that you think might be a good idea to build a business or build a future in another way. It might stop you writing the book that you always wanted to write. These fears build up in your mind. What if they don't really exist? And it's because we live in this world where technology and the mobile phone. We don't live in our own minds. We don't live in a present moment. We're always flitting backwards and forwards with the pace of life and the stress of life into the past and into the future, and building this shit up in our heads that doesn't really exist. The trouble is, it can stop us laughing, it stops us crying, it stops us living, it stops us achieving, it stops us moving forward. It puts boundaries around us. Um, you can't sing, dance, laugh, cry, enjoy emotion. It's just about perceived risks that don't even exist. So I'm going to share with you now. The problem is, because we have these perceived risks and these build up, we're making ourselves really ill with it as well. This is another issue, because this fight or flight response, and I'm not telling you something you probably don't already know, but your mind's probably pushing it backwards, and you're not facing up to it. But the stress hormones, the cortisol, the heart rate, that fight or flight response that you're not using it is really damaging your body. It's causing illness, it's causing unbalance, it's causing unhappiness, it's causing massive anxiety and worry that doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to be there. Of course, some things are justified, and some of us have issues within our lives that bring us massive worry, anxiety, and fear, and depression, and stuff that maybe this. But what I'm going to pass on to you now can maybe bring you some relief from that, and eventually some freedom from it. But there may be more serious issues that you need to talk to someone about. I understand that. I'm not poo-pooing people's fears. I'm just passing on a way to that sharing a way that I've dealt with my anxiety and fear. I was an extremely fearful person. Stopped me doing and achieving and accomplishing a lot of things in my life. Fear, I'm a worrier. I'm what they call a born worrier, and I'm sure a lot of you out there are as well. But the brain will take over. And I'm going to talk to you again about this 5 second rule now, because and this is built into this technique I'm going to teach you, or I'm going to pass on to you. Not teaches you is the wrong word, because the brain will always look for a comfortable option. The brain will always exaggerate and build pictures, and the brain affects every atom in your body, or can affect every atom in your body. It will create all these horrible feelings, and it will create all these chemicals that run around your body. And this is a way of stopping that happening and turning it around in your favor. The thing is, it's like with anything. It's like with recovery. It's like with withdrawal. It's like getting through any recovery. It's like building new habits and good habits, and this is another habit that you put into your day, basically, or I've put into my day. But this all takes discipline. Without discipline, you won't achieve this. You won't achieve anything. It's like anything in life. It takes discipline, and discipline is an important part of this, because you need discipline over this thing in your mind. This thing which will build these pictures in your mind and exaggerate. And you need to bring yourself back into the present moment when you're feeling this fear. So the thing is, well, it's positive. People will tell you face your fears. You can conquer your fears. You can have positive thoughts. You can be calm. Just calm down. But none of that works with this. With fear, especially if you've got acute fear and acute anxiety, it doesn't work. Because the thing is, share something with you now, which is the crux of this method. Fear and excitement are exactly the same body response, exactly, fear and excitement. So the thing is, both those states, fear, excitement, the same thing, is a high state of arousal in your body. Your blood's pumping, your heart's pumping, like I say, your cortisol's pumping, everything's ready to fight or run away. And if someone tells that state of arousal, if someone tells you to calm down, because there's a big difference between I'm ready to fight and and my body's and I'm panting and my breaths and my heart's beating, and calm down. The state of calm is you can't just calm down like that, and positive thoughts can actually make your worry worse because you start to dwell on that worry and fear, and it builds up and builds up and builds up. So this technique is to realise that, first of all, that fear and excitement are the same thing exactly in your body response. The difference between the two is your brain. It's how your brain perceives that, and does it perceive fear or does it perceive excitement? So this is a daily practice, and it takes discipline and whatever. You've got to switch those thoughts in your mind and use the 5-second rule. So I'll give you an example now. Um, well, a couple of examples actually. The fear of flying is one. I'm really fearful of flying, and all that builds pictures in your mind of the plane plummeting out of the sky. And I'm sorry for those of you who are fearful of flying and whatever. It builds up, and throughout the flight, every little bump of turbulence is a very fearful moment, and that fear builds up and builds up. The pictures start to build up. I get sweaty, my heart starts to beat, and all. This is what happens with fear. You're building flights, and it's the safe. In effect, really, if you told your brain it's the safest form of travel there is statistically, but your brain's not telling you that. Your brain's painting these pictures. So you need to do what I'm going to tell you now, which I've been doing, and it's really worked for me, and I hope it works for you. Won't work every time, and it takes discipline and daily practice with your fears and your anxiety and your worries. First of all, understanding what you're worried or you're anxious about is important. So in this case it's flying. So you hit the turbulence. The thing you do is you take a breath, and then you count back from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's that 5 seconds that's really important, because that switches your brain onto this thought. This anchor thought. I'm going to call it an anchor thought. And this anchor thought is a total switch around in your mind. Instead of worrying about the turbulence you're crashing, you picture in your mind as you're flying, because you're going to on holiday, or you're going to whatever it's going to be. It's exciting, and it's excitement. You're going to see so and so you've not seen for a long time. You're going to a beautiful holiday destination. You're doing this, you're doing that. So immediately you count down from 5, and you switch that thought in your head to the exciting thought. It's like with public speaking, the same thing. You can have all this fear of failure and it all going wrong, and you're stumbling over your words. But you might be behind the scenes going to speak publicly. Excitements, you're going to inspire people. You're gonna make them understand your message and pass on your message and whatever. But the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is really important, and then the anchor thought, because it brings this into your brain and it switches immediately that fear into this. I'm not going to say a positive thought, into this excitement thought, into this. So you're experiencing excitement, you're not experiencing fear. It takes daily practice. This, don't get me wrong, it doesn't happen overnight. It's the same with fear of withdrawal and fear of recovery. You can switch that thought in your brain, that negative thought. We all know withdrawal is going to be uncomfortable. Of course we do, if you've been through it before. But your mind paints, but it's going to be worse than ever. It's going to be horrible. You remember pain, but you can switch that with a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this switches on your frontal cortex. This is medically proven by neuroscientists that this works. because you're switching off this. You're not giving the brain chance um, to, to snooze, go into snooze mode, and paint pictures, and the brain will try and protect you as much as it can, and it'll build up fear and fear and fear to encourage you not to do things that might be dangerous for you or uncomfortable for you. And this is what fear, this is what it does. You switch that off by switching that to excitement. It might not work every single time, but it's like with withdrawal and recovery. This excitement is the excitement of being clean, the excitement of getting through this and facing life again and living life again. The excitement of being living life on your terms and building your self-esteem up and getting your dignity and your self-respect and your health back and your motivation back and your joy of life back and million other things that recovery brings you. You can switch that fear into this excitement. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, anchor thought, excitement. And just keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. It's not going to cure your fear and anxiety overnight, but it will eventually just stop it. You'll learn to switch your brain off when it has these thoughts and it tries to build this shit up in your head. It'll switch it off. So give it a try. I'm just passing on my experience because it's definitely worked for me. And I'll share I always like to share a couple of quotes which might sort of inspire you on, if you like, because the truth, a lot of people have said these things, have experienced fear and gone through it, and found their own ways to cope with it. This is just one way I'm passing on, which has worked for me. But fear, don't forget, fear is a phantom. It doesn't really exist. Danger exists, yes, but perceived threat is what's going on in your head, most of the time, 99% of the time. A few of the quotes, Ralph Waldo Emerson's one of my favourite people, with these quotes. He was a very famous philosopher, and a lot of the stuff he said was weirdly accurate. Do the thing we fear, and death of fear is certain. Well, that's another way, because if we're avoiding something, we can use this technique, and then we can go through that fear. It's like withdrawal and recovery, isn't it? We can use this technique and have excitement for it, and then actually go through it, and then the fear doesn't exist anymore because it can't. It's got nothing to feed off because you've done it, you've gone through it. So do the thing we fear, and death of fear is certain. Action cures fear, and action creates terror. Well, that's if you don't do this or do something about it or go through it, then it's not fear anymore. It's terror. It'll stop you sleeping. It'll stop you living. It'll stop everything in your life. It'll paralyze you, cripple you. So don't let it. Do this. Do anything that you find is easy. Meditation, breathing, whatever. But just go through that fear. Do that thing that you're fearful of. Accomplish. Do. Action cures fear, and action creates terror. Worry or fear never robs tomorrow of its sorrow. It just saps today of its joy. It's nothing more true than that, is it? Because we're living in our heads all the time. We're living in this ego mind we've got, and it's just pictures and just not true. It's just all a lie in your head, by your brain. So it just saps. But if you're living in the past or living in the future, it just saps tomorrow of its joy. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen to you. If something bad is going to happen, it's going to happen to you. Don't waste today on tomorrow's fears. And finally, before I go, fear spelt FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Bear that one in mind. False evidence appearing real. A lot of it's not really there, So some is, and danger is. Don't get me wrong, but false evidence appearing real. So I hope that's been useful for you. And if it has, then subscribe to the channel and hit the like button or share it with other people, because it's important that other people see these things. And hopefully, by passing on that experience, you can perhaps learn from it and use it in your daily life. Anyway, thank you for listening, and don't forget, as I say every time, carpe diem, seize the day. I'll take my glasses off now because I've finished reading them quotes. Seize the day. Just hold on if you're struggling, and it will get better. So face up, action. All right. See you again. Much love to you all. Bye bye.